Hi, friends. Tonight, let us draw the heavy velvet curtains of time and slip quietly into a world that echoes with sandal-clad footsteps, flickers with oil lamps, and whispers with the secrets of ancient Rome. But not the Rome of emperors and triumphs, not the Rome of marble forums or golden laurels. No, tonight we step into the shadows, into the dust and silence behind the grandeur. Tonight, we begin the story of those who labored in chains, who bore the weight of an empire's glory with broken backs and weary hearts. This is the tale of Roman slaves, and why you would not last a single day as one of them, not because you are weak, dear listener. No, not for lack of courage or resilience, but because what we call cruelty today was once simply called life, and in that life, within the stone walls of domus and villa, in the mines beneath the earth and the galleys across the sea, human dignity was bartered like wine, and survival was the only freedom one could dream of. So, lie back and breathe. Slow. Close your eyes if you like. Let us begin at the beginning. Let us begin in the markets of Rome. The year is 117 AD. The Emperor Trajan has just returned from the Dacian Wars, his conquests pushing the Roman Empire to its farthest extent. The streets of the Eternal City bustle with triumph, with colours, with the scent of bread and olive oil thick in the summer air. But not far from the chatter of poets and senators, there is another hum, a quieter one, a darker one. It comes from the Forum Venalium, the slave market. You step into this world not as a visitor, not as a citizen, but as the merchandise. Imagine waking not in a bed, but on a wooden pallet, bound by shackles at the ankles, your hands blistered from travel, your eyes heavy with fear. You do not know the language. You are not Roman. You are Getae or Thracian, or perhaps you are from the wild moors of Britannia. You were taken after battle, or sold by debt, or betrayed by those you once trusted. Now, you are stripped of your name. At the market, a chalk mark is drawn on your feet, non morbus, not diseased. This makes you more valuable. A placard is hung around your neck, listing your age, your skills, your origins. You are poked, prodded, displayed beneath the sun like meat at a butcher's stall. Some are made to dance, others to run or lift weights, to demonstrate strength. A whisper here, a nod there. And just like that, you are sold. You become property. The man who buys you is a dominus, a Roman of modest wealth. Perhaps he needs a kitchen slave, or a reader for his children, or simply a body to help carry the burden of daily life. You follow him home on foot, exhausted. The journey is not long, but each step feels like an eternity. His domus, a middle-class, urban home, has a peristyle garden and a modest atrium. You are taken to the back, past the dining room, and into the servant quarters. There is a corner for sleeping. No bedding, but straw. No warmth but your own breath. No freedom but in your dreams. You are given a tunic, coarse, beige. It itches your skin, still raw from travel. You are fed a piece of bread and a cup of posca, a watered-down vinegar drink common among slaves. And then, just like that, your new life begins. The routines are rigid. You rise with the first hint of dawn when the world is still cloaked in stars. Tasks are doled out with the snapping of fingers. If you are strong, you may be sent to grind grain, fetch water, scrub the atrium's mosaic floors with a rag and lye soap until they gleam. If you are clever, you might be taught to read Latin, but beware, knowledge is dangerous in a slave, too much of it, and you might be sold elsewhere, where silence is more valuable than wit. Punishment is swift and without appeal. A dropped amphora might earn you lashes. Speaking without permission, another. Running away, death, or branding. On the forehead with the letter F for fugitivus, fugitive. There is no room for error, and yet among the other slaves, you may find the tender echoes of humanity, a whispered joke in the kitchen, a shared crust of bread, a song hummed while sweeping the courtyard. These, too, are the threads of life in bondage, fragile, fleeting, but real. As night falls and the household retreats into sleep, you return to your straw bed, bones aching. Above, through the open-air roof, you can see a slice of Roman sky, still, indifferent, eternal, and you wonder, how long will this life be yours? A month? A year? A lifetime? You were not born to be a slave. But here you are, and already the day has broken you. The city, with its marble columns and murmuring fountains, now lies far behind you. You have been sold again, this time to a dominus who owns a vast estate in the rolling countryside of Etruria, in the heart of the Tuscan hills. But there is no poetry here, no vineyards laden with joy, no golden harvest to celebrate. For you, the land is not a muse, it is a master. Welcome to the latifundium. It is early, and the mist still clings to the olive trees, like thin silver veils. You rise before the sun, roused not by the soft call of birds but by the sharp end of a staff tapping your ribs. The overseer, Villicus, does not speak often, and when he does, it is in commands. Surge, he says. Rise. Your feet are bare. The soil is cold, but soon the heat will come, relentless, searing, and without reprieve. You shuffle into line with the others. Men and women, shoulders hunched, eyes low. All of you are chained at night. Not cruelly, but practically. The estate is vast, and Rome cannot afford to lose its most essential machinery. You are the machinery. The work begins with the olives. You are handed a long stick, verga, not for beating, but for harvest. You must strike the branches, forcing the ripe olives to fall into nets laid beneath. The sound is rhythmic, almost hypnotic, but with every swing, your arms grow heavier. There is no end to it. By midday, your back screams with pain. The sun has risen high, and the air is thick with heat. Your tunic clings to your skin, soaked with sweat. A break is given, a few moments under the sparse shade of a cypress tree. Water is passed around in a shared vessel. No words, just breathing. Then, back to work. In the latifundium, there are no holidays, no saturnalia cheer, no breaks for birthdays or mourning. The fields care not for your grief, nor does the Villicus. You are an extension of the land now, and the land is insatiable. When the olive season ends, you move to the wheat. Harvesting grain is even worse. You crouch low, dragging a sickle through the golden stalks, careful not to cut yourself. Blades are not sharpened for your comfort. Each motion must be precise. Waste is punished. And always there is the fear of snakes hiding in the crops, of sharp stones beneath the soil. One girl, younger than you, cuts her hand, deeply. She cries out, but the Villicus only glances, then turns away. She wraps the wound in cloth, torn from her own tunic, and keeps cutting. You dream sometimes of escape. The hills are wide, the forests are dark. There must be somewhere to hide. But you have heard the stories of dogs trained to scent the fugitive, of bounty hunters who roam the roads with chains and knives, of slaves found in the woods and nailed to crosses along the via, left as warnings to others. The body of one such man is still spoken of here, left hanging for 3 days until the birds took his eyes. So you do not run. Instead, you endure. Nights on the estate are no comfort. You sleep in a long shed with the others, packed like firewood, the air thick with breath and fatigue. Sometimes, there are whispers, stories of home, of mothers and rivers, of gods who may yet be listening. A quiet prayer to Ceres, perhaps, or a bitter curse to Mars for allowing this fate. You learn quickly who among the slaves can be trusted. There is Domitus, an older man with a limp, who shows you how to wrap your feet with cloth to soften the ache. There is Selina, who hums old songs when the villicus is out of earshot. Her voice is like wind through reeds, fragile but beautiful. You cling to these small mercies. They are the only ones you have. The seasons pass. Your hands grow calloused. Your skin darkens beneath the unyielding sun. You forget the sound of your native tongue, replacing it with Latin, rough, clipped, utilitarian. You begin to understand the rhythms of the land, when to plant, when to reap, when to burn the fields clean, but you do not belong here. Not truly. You are a ghost in the countryside, a body without choice, a soul without rest. And always you wonder, would anyone back home even remember your name? One evening, as the stars shimmer like scattered coins above the villa, you hear the clinking of armor and the snorting of horses. A guest has arrived. A senator, perhaps. There is talk of moving some of the estate's slaves to Rome, to serve, in the household or be sold anew. You do not know whether to hope for it, for city life may be softer, but slavery wears many masks. For now, you lie back on the wooden board that serves as your bed and let your mind drift, just for a moment, to the time before this, to the taste of honey, the scent of pine, the laughter of a sister, and then sleep, because tomorrow the field will call again. The earth has a silence all its own. Beneath the Roman countryside, far from the chatter of taverns and the chanting of temples, there are places where even the gods do not hear. Places carved from stone and shadow. Places where daylight is not. A visitor. Tonight we descend into one such place. Welcome. To the ergastulum. You are not brought here with ceremony. You are dragged. Your crime? You spoke out. Not loudly. Just once. A question. A plea. A protest against the weight of work that day. The villicus heard. And for that, this, you arrive with, your hands tied and your feet bare, stumbling behind the guard like a frightened beast. The entrance is a squat, narrow door, half sunken into a hillock of stone and grass. To the unknowing eye, it might be a storage cellar, but you will come to know it far too well. The key turns, the door groans, and you are pushed inside. The air hits you first. It is damp, thick, metallic. It smells of sweat and rot, of mildew and blood. A torch flickers along the corridor, just enough to show the narrow path and the rows of bodies slumped against the walls. These are not prisoners of war, not thieves, not traitors. These are slaves, just like you. The ergastulum is not meant to be a prison in the Roman sense. It is not a place of trial or reform. It is a warehouse of punishment, a crypt for the breathing, a warning to others. You are led to a space no larger than a dog kennel and shoved inside. The door is wooden, bolted with rusting iron and closed behind you. It leaves a single slit for air. No bedding, no warmth, no name, just stone beneath you, stone around you, and darkness pressing in. The first hours pass in disorientation. Your eyes strain to adjust. You see only shapes, moving, barely. You hear coughing, whispering, a sudden cry in the far corridor that dies quickly. Rats scurry along the edges. Something brushes against your foot. You do not flinch. You are too tired to flinch. At some point, a bowl is slid through the slit. Gruel, cold and soupy, with a taste of ash and metal. You sip it slowly, grateful nonetheless. Hunger is the great equalizer in Rome. It makes even the worst seem welcome. You sleep, or you try to. There is no telling the hour. Time bends here, like water in a cracked jar. A day feels like a month, a week, eternity. Sometimes men are dragged out, few return. When they do, their eyes are different. Some do not speak at all. Others mutter constantly. Nonsense in Greek, in Punic, in tongues not even the gods would know. And always there is the whip, not often. Just enough to remind you that it exists. Just enough to remind you that you do not. One day, or perhaps night, a new voice stirs beside you. It is an old man, or perhaps just aged by pain. His Latin is coarse but kind. "You're new," he says. You nod. You whisper, "Yes." "Don't fight it," he tells you. "Don't hope. Just breathe." That's how you live longer. His name is Calvus. He was once a house slave in Capua. He struck a patrician's son for groping his daughter. Now he lives in the ergastulum, or rather, he waits here, day by day, until something else decides his fate. You begin to follow his advice. You breathe. Slowly. Purposefully. You count the breaths to pass the time. You hum quietly to yourself. A lullaby from your childhood, long forgotten until now. It steadies you, gives you shape. Each morning, or what you think is morning, a small light appears. A slave from outside brings stale bread. Sometimes he meets your eyes. Sometimes he looks away. You wonder what it is like out there. Even the field seems like paradise now. Occasionally, the door opens and you are dragged out. Not for release, but for labor. The ergastulum is not just a cell. It is a reservoir of punishment labor. You are sent to clear drainage ditches, carry stones, clean latrines. No one speaks to you. You speak to no one. The world is colorless now. Shades of gray and bruised blue. Your back grows hunched. Your fingernails thicken with grime. The voice in your head becomes your only companion. And yet, you do not break. Not fully. Not yet. Calvus dies one day. Quietly. In his sleep, you think. You call out softly. No one comes. You sit with his body until it is removed, dragged unceremoniously from the cell. A sack of bones and silence. You whisper a prayer for him. And then you go on. Because there is no other choice. Eventually the door opens once more. But this time, you are not pulled out by force. You are called by name. Your dominus has decided that your debt has been paid. Or perhaps another master needs you. Or maybe, just maybe, they simply ran out of room. You are returned to the light, and it hurts. The sun stabs your eyes, burns your skin. You squint like an animal emerging from hibernation. The world is too bright, too loud, too alive, and yet you are still breathing, just as Calvus taught you. There is a kind of stillness that exists only before the sound of violence. A breath held too long, a sky too blue, the smell of sweat clinging to stone. You are standing beneath the arena now. The Colosseum towers above you, its arches like the ribs of some sleeping beast. From below, you hear the muffled thunder of the crowd, rising and falling like the tide, waiting, always waiting, for blood. Today, you are their offering. You were not always meant for this fate. Once, you belonged to a villa in the countryside, a house slave tasked with managing grain ledgers. But your dominus fell into debt, and you, along with a dozen others, were sold to cover his losses. Purchased by a lanista, a merchant of men, you were stripped, inspected, and transported to a ludus, a training school for gladiators. The maid, one near Capua, they say, is the finest. It was here that Spartacus once learned to fight. Perhaps the walls remember him. At first, you are not taught to fight. You are taught to survive. The meals are nourishing, designed not for comfort, but for building mass and speed. Lentils, barley, fresh bread, goat meat. It is more than you have eaten in years. The irony is not lost on you. Only in preparing to die do you begin to live well. Each morning, drills begin at dawn. You are issued a wooden sword, heavy and thick, and commanded to strike a post wrapped in hay. Again and again, not until you are tired, until you are silent, until your arms can no longer hold the weight. The doctor, a former champion named Fulgur, walks the lines with a scar splitting his face like a lightning bolt. He carries a whip. He uses it often, but not with cruelty, with purpose. Your enemy is not the man in front of you, he says. It is the crowd. Fail to move them, and you die. There are many types of gladiators. The retiarius, quick and agile, fights with a trident and net. The mumio wears a helmet shaped like a fish. The secutor, smooth and rounded, is trained to pursue. You are assigned the style of the Thraex, a Thracian warrior, curved blade and small shield. The helmet they give you is heavy, bronze, with a high crest and grillwork that allows only narrow slits for your eyes. You feel like a beast in a cage. You are not wrong. The ludus is not a prison. Not exactly, but its walls are high, and its gates are locked. No one leaves without coin or corpse. You spar each day with other slaves, Gauls, Numidians, Greeks, even a Roman or two who have fallen into disgrace. Some are quiet. Some sing to themselves before combat. Some cry at night when they think no one hears. You learn quickly who to avoid in the yard, who is reckless, who is cruel, who is afraid. And slowly, you forget who you were. The name you were, born with fades. You become only what the lanista calls you, ferox, the fierce one. You do not feel fierce, but you do not argue. The day of your first match arrives with little ceremony. You are awakened early, fed richly, dressed in your assigned armor. Your blade is real this time, sharpened and waiting. There is no fear in your stomach, only a tightness, a cold clarity. You are paired with another newcomer. He is taller. You nodded to him once during training. Today, you do not speak. The gate lifts and light floods in. The roar hits you first. 50,000 voices, a sea of faces. The Colosseum surrounds you, impossibly vast. Senators in white, matrons with jeweled veils, beggars leaning forward with eager eyes. They all want the same thing: blood. You step onto the sand, rough and golden beneath your feet. The air is dry, metallic with the scent of iron and dust. You raise your shield, lower your stance. The match begins. It is not a dance. It is not elegant. It is survival, pure and brutal. Your opponent swings wide. You deflect. He charges. You sidestep. Blades scrape. Sand kicks. A glancing blow lands on your thigh. Pain flares, but you stay standing. And then, in a blur, an opening. You strike. He falls. The crowd screams. You look up toward the editor, the sponsor of the games, seated in the Imperial box. His thumb hovers. The people chant. Some for mercy, some for death. Finally, the hand lifts. Thumb up, sparing him. You exhale. Not because you are merciful, because you do not yet want to know what it feels like to take a life for applause. Later that night, you sit in your cell. Your thigh is wrapped. Your hands tremble. But there is food, a jug of watered wine, even laughter from the next cell. One match survived. You are told that victory brings fame, a name, perhaps one day freedom. But you've seen the faces of those who have fought longer than you. They no longer believe in freedom, only in delaying death. Your name, your pain, your fear, all of it is owned by others. Even your breath is borrowed. And yet, when you sleep, you dream not of chains or blood. You dream of walking barefoot in a field of wildflowers, of a river you once bathed in, of a mother's voice calling your name, not Ferox, but the one you no longer remember. In those dreams, you are not a slave, not a gladiator, just human. And in this world of spectacle and steel, perhaps that is the fiercest thing of all. There is a softness to the domus that deceives the eye. It is a place of candlelight and cool marble, of perfume that clings to the air like a whispered secret. The walls are painted with gardens and gods, the ceilings carved with myth. To the outsider, it is a palace of beauty. To you, it is a cage lined with silk. For here, you are not starved. You are not whipped. You are dressed and fed, but you are owned, just the same. Welcome to the household of Rome's nobility. Your new master is a senator named Gaius Aelius Petronianus. His wife, Fabia, comes from one of the oldest patrician families. Their house sits on the Palatine Hill, surrounded by gardens, its atrium open to the sky. There is a fountain that murmurs day and night, like a voice too weary to speak plainly. You are brought here with 4 others, selected not for strength, but for calm eyes and clean Latin. You are to be a personal attendant, a role that demands not muscle, but silence. You learn quickly that here, the rules are different. The whip is rare, but the consequences are colder. A single glance out of place may earn you a scolding in front of guests. A faint stain on the master's toga means no food that evening. Forget a name at a banquet. You might be sent back to the auction house. The stakes are invisible, but no, less sharp. And the fear is never loud. It is quiet, woven into every step. Your day begins in the stillness before dawn. You rise, fold your mat, wash your face in a copper basin, and begin lighting the household lamps. Oil is precious. Every drop must last. You learn how to make a flame burn longer, how to clean soot from a sconce without chipping the mosaic. You prepare hot water for the mistress's bath, laced with lavender and salt. Her mirror must be polished until it blinds. Her hairpins must be arranged in a particular order, always with the silver tipped inward. She does not tell you these things. You are expected to know or to learn quickly. Fabia is not cruel, but she is exacting. She corrects your posture when you walk too heavily. She gestures with a flick of the wrist when you've poured too much wine. She expects you to laugh at the right moment during her conversations, and to vanish the moment you are no longer useful. Sometimes she looks at you as one might a vase. Decorative, replaceable. You do not resent her, but you do not trust her either. Among the other household slaves, there are ranks as clear and cold as marble columns. The dispensator handles the accounts and looks down on the kitchen staff. The cubiculari serve in the sleeping chambers, often with the quiet pride of those near power. The pedagogus, who tutors the young son of the house, is Greek and carries himself like a philosopher, though he sleeps on straw like the rest. You are tolerated, watched, occasionally advised. There is little friendship here, only careful alliances. In the evenings, you attend the family during meals. You learn to pour wine in silence, to anticipate the wave of a hand or the shift of a foot. You light incense when Fabia's head aches. You press her temples with rose oil when the weather changes. You listen to conversations about senators, lawsuits, omens, and marriages. You are invisible, and yet always observed. A guest once complimented your composure. Fabia smiled and said, "Yes, we've trained him well. Like a hound who doesn't bark." The laughter was brief. Your silence was longer. There is no privacy. Not for you. Not even in your thoughts. You find yourself smiling when you do not feel joy. Nodding when you do not agree. You forget how to say no. You forget what it feels like to be asked a question with genuine interest. Even your dreams begin to change. No longer do you see home, or the river where you once swam, or the grove where you kissed your first love. Now you dream of silver trays and spilled wine, of being summoned, of being dismissed. Even your sleep has become service. But not all moments are bitter. Sometimes when the house is quiet and the guests have gone, you slip into the peristyle and sit among the laurel and rosemary. You listen to the fountain and let its rhythm quiet your thoughts. You talk in whispers with Brutus, a kitchen slave who once studied rhetoric. He tells you about Cicero and recites poems under his breath. For a brief hour, you are not a tool. You are simply tired and human. Then comes a day when the senator is angry. A deal has fallen through. He returns home, eyes wild, voice sharp. No one knows why he shouts at Fabia. No one dares ask. But by evening, a servant girl has been beaten and sent away. You do not see her again. Fabia's bracelet is missing, they say. You remember polishing it just 2 days ago. You wonder if it was lost, or if someone needed to be blamed. You wonder too if it might be you next time. Because here, within these painted walls, punishment is a matter of whim, not law, and beneath every silk pillow, there, is the cold iron of ownership. The soul of Rome is made of stone, not the glistening marble of temples, nor the towering columns of triumph, but the stones laid in silence, one upon the next, by calloused hands that no senator would ever see. Beneath every aqueduct, every cobbled road, every monument carved to glorify conquest, there beats the exhausted rhythmic labour of those owned not by men, but by the city itself. Tonight, you walk among them. You are a servus publicus, a public slave. You do not belong to a noble house, nor to a merchant with distant villas. You are not for sale. You are already purchased. You are now property of the Roman state, and the Roman state has much for you to do. Your first day begins with a name that is not your own. Silvanus, the overseer says. You don't correct him. You don't remember what they called you before. You are assigned to the Cura Aquarum, the department responsible for maintaining Rome's aqueducts. The aqueduct of Aqua Claudia runs cracked and limping just beyond the Caelian hill, and your job is to keep its arteries flowing. The tools are simple: a chisel, a hammer, a shovel. The labour is not. You stand beneath the massive arches that carry water into the city, structures more powerful than armies. You are part of that now, a bone in the skeleton of empire. But unlike the marble lions above, you will not be remembered. Each morning, your group assembles in the tool shed, a long, squat structure filled with iron and dust. The overseer hands out tasks like a priest, dispensing sacraments, stone replacement, mortar mixing, lime hauling. You nod, accept, move on. Your stomach is lined only with barley mash and a single fig. The day's heat begins before the sun rises fully. By mid-morning, your skin is slick with sweat. Your hands are white from the lime, cracked from gripping stone. Every task is repetitive, exacting. There is no room for thought, only rhythm. Lift, place, hammer. Dust coats your lungs. Silence fills your mind. You work beside dozens of others, each with hollow cheeks and stiff shoulders. You learn no names. They don't ask for yours. Yet there is a kind of solidarity among you, an unspoken pact of endurance. A Gaul with a scar beneath his eye shows you how to brace your knee before striking a block. An old man from Hispania offers you a strip of cloth to bind your wrist. No one smiles. But they notice when you bleed. They notice when you fall behind. There is no friendship, but there is something close. Your nights are spent in a long barrack outside the worksite, built of tufa stone, with wooden cots stacked too high. The air is warm with breath and the scent of men. Some pray before sleep, others stare at the ceiling, lips moving silently. You do neither. You dream of falling, not from heights, but through memory, into places where your name still had meaning. One day, the foreman pulls you aside. You are assigned to the Cloaca Maxima, Rome's great sewer. It is older than the Forum itself, a dark vein through the city's bowels. You descend into the tunnels with a crew of 6. The air is thick, wet, sour. Water swirls around your knees. You carry stones for reinforcement, press mortar into the cracks, patch walls that sag with centuries of filth. You retch. Everyone does. Then you get back to work. There are no torches, just lanterns and faith. One misstep and the current will take you. No one will recover your body. The public slaves are rotated frequently to keep them from growing too familiar with one another, to keep them from plotting or resting. Today you mend a road. Tomorrow you wash statues in the Forum. The next, you sweep temple steps or dig post holes for scaffolding. You are a wheel in the great machine. Never asked, never still. Sometimes citizens pass by and nod. Sometimes they do not. Once a young patrician drops a coin as he watches you work. Your foreman picks it up and pockets it. You feel nothing. Because Rome is not cruel by error, it is cruel by design. Despite this, there is a strange dignity in your labor. You begin to know the stones, the way they sound when cracked, the way they shift when wet, the way heat settles in them like a memory. You begin to see the city not as majesty, but as maintenance, and you are its pulse, unseen, but vital. One evening, you sit alone outside the barrack, watching the fading sun bleed across the rooftops. Someone behind you sings softly in Greek. The smell of bread drifts from a vendor's cart far off. You feel no joy, but you feel real, present, like the stone beneath you, solid and weathered. You will not be named in a triumphal arch, but you will leave your mark just the same. For when the senators bathe in warm water, it is your work that carried it. When children walk safely on smooth roads, it is your sweat that laid them. When Rome drinks, eats, speaks, and sleeps, it is you who held the city up, one cracked stone at a time. There is a beauty in Rome that can wound. It dances in candlelight reflected on alabaster skin. It lingers in the scent of crushed violet, clinging to linen robes too fine for labor. It hides behind the drapes of intimacy, where pleasure and power are tightly wound like strands of a golden chain. And it is here, behind the veils of the villa, that you now live. You are no longer a field hand, nor a gladiator, nor a builder of roads. You are a delicia, a slave of pleasure. You were chosen not at market, but through whisper and letter. The mistress of the house had heard of you, your figure, your eyes, the graceful way you once served wine at another banquet. A guest noticed your voice, another your laugh. Word spread. A senator's wife sent for you, and so you were delivered. Not in chains, but in a litter, wrapped in soft cloth, perfumed as though you were already part of the decor. They do not want to see the dust you come from, only the illusion you now represent. Your body becomes your duty, not through force, but through expectation. You are bathed twice a day in scented oils. Your skin is scrubbed until it glows, your hair combed, curled, and treated with sweet gum. Your lips are tinted with crushed berries. You are fitted into tunics made to fall just so. The tailor does not ask what you like. He knows what others wish to see. You are adorned like a statue, touched like a song, and beneath it all, you do not speak of what it costs. The villa is large, overlooking the sea. You sleep in a small chamber near the mistress's rooms, close enough to be summoned, far enough to remain unseen when not required. A curtain, not a door, separates your rest from your role. You are trained not to love, but to mimic it. You learn the difference between genuine laughter and the laugh that flatters. You learn the timing of a lingering glance, the precise weight of a touch. Desire in Rome is a performance. You are both actor and stage. The other Delicia, there are 4, are older than you, but not by much. They whisper in Greek, share cosmetics, and warn you of what not to do. A glance held too long. A sigh heard by the wrong person. The mistress's moods change like the tide. So do her affections. One girl, Lisa, once sang a lullaby in the garden, a song from home. The mistress overheard. She forbade that melody from ever being sung again. Too sad, she said. This house is not for sadness, and yet sadness lingers in every corner of it. The master, Lucius, is a man of education and indulgence. He does not raise his voice. He does not strike. But his favor is like fire. It warms or consumes. When he is pleased, he offers you figs, jewelry, rare silks. He speaks to you of Virgil, asks for your opinion on sculpture, smiles at your quiet wit. When he is not pleased, he grows distant. You are not punished, you are ignored, and that silence is worse. The nights of feasts are the most dangerous. You are expected to be perfect. You dance beside fountains as guests recline on ivory couches. You pour wine without spilling, laugh at crude jokes, sit close when called, disappear when dismissed. Sometimes a guest reaches for your hand, sometimes for more. You are not required to obey them, unless Lucius nods. You learn to read gestures like prophecy, a flick of the wrist, a raised brow, the shadow of a smile. You must always stay one breath ahead, anticipating need, hiding fatigue, mastering the art of appearing effortless. But inside, you are always counting. How many smiles until sleep? How many touches before you forget what they feel like? There is no privacy. Even your tears must be quiet. In the garden, you once saw Lisa crying beside the laurel hedge. She said nothing. You said nothing. Later that night, she painted her lips redder than usual and sang a song in Phoenician to make the mistress laugh. You do not ask what caused the tears. You learn quickly. In this place, weakness is seen as waste. And yet, there are moments. Moments when you look at the moon from the courtyard, when the air smells of orange blossom, when the breeze touches your cheek like something familiar. You remember then the feeling of running barefoot, of eating with your hands, of being kissed by someone who did not want anything in return. These moments do not last, but they remind you are still inside there, somewhere. Once, the master fell ill. You were sent to tend him. For days, you sat beside his couch, sponging his brow, feeding him broth, whispering stories from your childhood to keep him awake. He survived. He gave you a gold ring. You are not allowed to wear it, but you keep it hidden in the seam of your sleeping mat, a token not of affection, but of survival. And still you know, this life cannot last. Beauty fades, voices change, new favorites arrive. You are not safe. You are only chosen for now, and in Rome, favor is as fickle as flame. Not all prisons have bars. Some are carved from rock, chiseled into the earth with hands that tremble, breath that shortens, and bones that ache before the sun has even risen. Welcome to the mines of Rome. This is not a punishment given. It is a punishment lived. You do not remember the sail, only the cart, the bump of the wheels, the creak of wood, the smell of sweat and rust and salt, the sea fading behind you as you were taken inland, deep into the provinces. There is no bidding in the mines, no platform, no chalkboards or auctioneers, just a tally. You are listed among others, 10, 20, maybe more, all young, all lean, all judged strong enough to last at least a few months beneath the surface. That is all that's required, a few months of labor before the earth swallows you. The mine is not what you imagined. There are no grand tunnels lit with torches, no rails, or carts, or shouts of command. There is only stone, pressing, pressing, pressing. The shaft descends into a hole just large enough to crouch. Air grows thick, hot, still. Your breath comes slower. Your feet slip in damp soil. You are handed a pick and sent forward. No instruction, just a gesture. You begin. It is not natural, this life beneath the earth. You feel it in your chest, the weight of the rock above you, the way the silence presses against your ears until even your heartbeat feels like thunder. You cannot stand straight. Your neck aches from bending, your shoulders from swinging. You work by touch, by memory, by pain. Your hands are raw within hours. The silver veins you are sent to mine are buried deep, embedded in rock that resists each blow like bone. Dust clouds the narrow passages. You breathe through a strip of cloth. It helps little. You cough. Everyone does. Some never stop. You are allowed 2 meals a day, a bowl of barley, a cup of water. sometimes less if the overseer deems your work too slow. There is no rest, only reprieve between shifts. Sleep comes in short, twitching bursts. You dream of light and wake to blackness. You forget whether it is morning or evening. Eventually, it no longer matters. Time has no dominion here. Only stone. The others do not. Speak unless necessary. They have learned, as you will, that words waste breath. Faces are blank. Eyes swollen from dust and strain. There is no community, only coexistence. One man beside you collapses during a shift. He is not removed. He is stepped over. When the shift ends, he is dragged to a chamber near the base of the mine. He is not dead yet, but he will be, and there will be no mourning. The overseers are few, but ever present. They wear armor not to fight, but to remind. They carry sticks, not whips. Whips are for lessons. Here, lessons are not given. Here, you already know your place. You learn to count days not by sunrises, but by pain. The deeper the ache in your back, the more likely it's been a week. The longer the blood dries on your fingers, the closer the end of the month. But months mean little. Few survive them. The average life of a mine slave is 6 months. And that, only if lucky. Once, a small tunnel collapsed. You were nearby, not close enough to be buried, but close enough to hear the scream. Just one, sharp, and then silence. No one was sent to recover the body. The tunnel was sealed with mortar. The overseer marked a new map. The mine moved on. So did you. You begin to forget your own voice, the way your name once sounded, the curve of your mother's face. You try, sometimes, to hum a melody you knew as a child, but the tune slips through your memory like water through fingers. Your voice cracks. You stop. There is no room for music here, only the endless ringing of pick against stone. And yet, in the dark, you find something strange. A rhythm. Not comfort, but familiarity. The pattern of swing, breath, lift, return. Your body moves without you. It becomes the tool, the pick, the function. You do not survive. You continue. There is a difference. One day, a boy is brought down, too young, too afraid. He cries out at the tunnel's mouth. The guards shove him forward. You do not meet his eyes. You cannot afford to remember another name. At night, when the lamps are dim and the air cooler, you press your back against the damp wall of your sleeping space and look at nothing. The rock is wet. It weeps. A steady drip echoes from somewhere. You wonder if the earth remembers your face, or if it sees you only as a crack to be filled. You will not escape. You know this now. But sometimes, just before sleep, you dream of standing on a hill, barefoot, in sunlight, the wind on your arms, a bird passing overhead. You do not know its name. You do not know your own. But in that dream, you are not underground. You are not a ghost. You are alive, if only for a breath. To shape a mind while wearing chains, this is perhaps the cruelest irony of all. You were once a scholar. Once, you stood in shaded courtyards, discussing the principles of logic beneath painted columns. Once, your fingers turned the pages of scrolls in the libraries of roads. Once, your words were written in ink, your thoughts respected. But now, they are spoken only in service. And the ink that once knew your name has long since faded. You are now a pedagogus, a teacher, a slave, a contradiction. The house is not cruel, not visibly. It is clean, ordered, well kept. The dominus, Lucius Silanus, is a senator who rarely raises his voice. His wife, Calpurnia, rules the domus with quiet precision. Their son, young Publius, is clever, willful, and proud. He is your pupil. You are tasked with shaping his intellect, guiding his rhetoric, perfecting his pronunciation. You teach him history, recitation, moral philosophy, and Greek poetry. But you are not free to teach what you truly believe, only what serves his future. Each day begins before sunrise. You rise from a straw mattress, wash at a stone basin, and dress in a simple tunic. The steward expects punctuality. By the time the sun slips over the rooftops of Rome, you are seated in the colonnaded courtyard, wax tablet open, stylus in hand. Publius arrives reluctantly, sometimes with a yawn, sometimes with a smirk. He is 12 and clever beyond his age. He asks many questions. Some are honest, others designed to test your limits. "Why do we call you master if you are a slave?" he asks one morning. The question is innocent, but sharp. You pause, then answer, "Because mastery is not of status, but of knowledge." He frowns, then smiles. You move on. But your heart stings, not from the question, but because you once asked the same, of a chained Greek man in your own youth. You did not know then how quickly fortune turns. You are not beaten, you are not starved. You are clothed, housed, even treated with occasional respect, but never with equality. During banquets, you stand behind a column, waiting for a nod from the master should a guest wish to hear a recitation. You are summoned, not introduced. You speak, not freely. You exist, not fully. The family dog receives more affection, but less attention. You do not cry. There is no space for that now. Instead, you write in your mind verses that will never reach parchment. Thoughts you turn like smooth stones in your sleep. You debate yourself in silence. You teach yourself new arguments, so you may one day pass them on to Publius. And you wonder, will he remember you, or only your lessons? In the evenings, when your duties are done, you walk the garden paths. You whisper lines of Homer to the cypress trees. Sometimes you imagine that they whisper back, not to comfort, but to remind you that you are still thinking. And as long as you can think, you are not yet erased. One day, the Dominus asks to hear Publius recite Cicero's defense of Archias. The boy stumbles once. You wince. Lucius glances at you, not with anger, but with disappointment. Later, Publius apologizes. He says, "I failed. You smile, place a hand on his shoulder and reply, 'No, you learned.' It is not the answer of a slave. It is the answer of a teacher. But when you return to your room, you sit for a long time, staring at your hands. They once held scrolls copied by your father. Now, they hold nothing but memory. You are not alone in your work. The kitchen slaves labor with hot stones and knives. The housemaidens clean bronze mirrors until they shine brighter than their own eyes. A doorkeeper named Brutus, once a legionary, limps through his duties in silence. But you are apart, too educated to be among the workers, too enslaved to sit among the free. You live in a silence made not of shame, but of knowing, of remembering. Once, you are summoned to translate a letter from a Greek philosopher visiting the city. Your Latin is praised. Lucius smiles, saying, "You are wasted here." You bow. You say nothing. You have heard this before. Being wasted is the fate of all who are both valuable and bound. Publius grows older. His voice deepens. His thoughts sharpen. He questions the morality of slavery. He asks you what freedom truly means. You hesitate. You want to tell him everything, that freedom is not only the absence of chains, but the presence of purpose. That dignity can survive only in truth. That knowledge without compassion is as dangerous as power without restraint. But you say only this: freedom is the ability to choose which silence to keep. He does not understand, not yet, but he will. You once dreamed of returning home, of standing once more before the marble steps of the academy, of reading aloud to friends beneath the fig trees. But those dreams fade, not from despair, from distance. And now your greatest hope is that the boy you teach will become the man you once hoped, to be kind, wise, and able to remember, not you perhaps, but what you gave. The scent of incense fills the air. It curls like smoke through marble columns, weaving between statues of Jupiter, Juno, and Minerva. The sound of sandals on stone echoes beneath vaulted ceilings. Gold gleams, bells chime. Rituals begin, but your place in the temple is not at the altar, it is at the threshold. You are a templum servus, a temple slave, a servant of the gods, yet never their child. The temple is magnificent, a sanctuary in the heart of the city. It rises like a promise toward the sky. Columns as thick as trees support a ceiling painted with celestial bodies. Light filters through slits in the roof, catching on smoke and dust like heavenly fingers. People come here seeking miracles. You come here each morning before the sun rises, broom in hand, not to pray, to clean. Your task is to maintain the sacred. You sweep the steps, remove candle wax from floors, scrub the marble with vinegar and cloth. You light the braziers. You polish the silver vessels used in sacrifices. Your hands smell always of smoke and ash. Sometimes you are ordered to help prepare the offerings, grain, wine, honey cakes, and the occasional lamb or dove. You do not kill, but you carry the bowl where the blood will fall. The priests wear white robes. Their voices rise in chants and declarations. They are seen as pure, sacred intermediaries between man and God. You carry their sandals when they remove them. Before the shrine, you refill their wine. You press their cloaks before ceremonies. They pass you without looking. You kneel as they walk by. Because while the temple is built to glorify, it is also built to separate, and you are on the outside of holiness, always. You once believed. Long ago, before chains, before Rome, before Latin, you prayed to your village gods. You lit candles in mud temples, laid pebbles beside sacred rivers, whispered thanks after harvest. Now, you tend the rituals of deities who do not know your name, and in time, you forget the ones who once did. There is a girl named Varia. She serves in the temple kitchen. She prepares the dough for offerings and sings under her breath while stirring honey. You speak little, rules forbid it, but your glances meet across the courtyard. Once, she drops a bowl of flour. You kneel to help her gather it. Your hands touch. She smiles. It is the closest thing to a prayer you've known in years. The temple's schedule is unrelenting. Festivals, sacrifices, cleansings. You memorize them as a soldier memorizes marches. Saturnalia brings more work. Vestalia means the temple must be spotless. On feast days, you rise before the stars disappear. Crowds come in waves, pressing coins into offering boxes, lighting candles, whispering desires. You see them all. You hear their hopes. But none are for you. You are trained never to speak during rites. Your presence must not disturb the sanctity of the space. Even when you are the one who opened the doors. Even when it is your hands that ensured the altar gleams. You begin to wonder if silence is its own kind of prayer. One you never chose. There is an old priest, Marcius, who sometimes nods to you. Once, he said, "Your work pleases the gods." You almost believed him, until he offered the same words to the statue of a lion the next day. On cold mornings, you wrap your arms in cloth and stand beside the sacred fire, feeling its heat on your skin. You are not allowed to sit. You are not allowed to speak unless addressed. But the fire does not judge. It does not remember. It only burns. And in that, you find a strange comfort. One evening, during a storm, lightning strikes near the temple. The flames catch in the storehouse. You are one of the first to see it. You cry out, ring the bell, run barefoot through the rain to rouse the guards. Together, you help put out the fire. The next day, the priest announces to the congregation, the gods protected their house. No mention of you, only of gods you will never meet. Varia leaves, you do not know where, you do not ask, but her absence echoes louder than the chants. You polish the same bowl she once carried. You hum the same tune she used to sing. It tastes like salt. Sometimes you wonder what would happen if you walked beyond the gates, if you left the incense, the bells, the polished floors. Would anyone notice? Would the gods, or are you part of the temple only in utility, like a broom or a torch, replaceable, forgettable? Still, you stay, because outside the temple is Rome, and Rome forgets even faster than the gods. There are moments, rare and sharp, when sunlight hits the altar just right, when the chanting fades, when the air stills, and for a breath, you feel something stir in your chest, not faith, not joy, something quieter, a memory of a small shrine, of your mother's voice, of a prayer once whispered in a language you no longer speak, and for that breath, you feel human. It began, as all acts of courage do, with a silence. Not the silence of obedience, the silence of decision. You had stared at that gate every day, knowing it was locked from within, guarded, patrolled. But today, it wasn't. Today, something was different. The guard had gone to relieve himself. The overseer was counting grain. The air was still. And in that breathless moment, your legs moved. You ran. Your feet hit the road like thunder in your own ears. You did not know where to go. You did not stop to think. You only moved forward, through olive groves, across dust-blown fields, past startled goats and nodding sunflowers. The villa disappeared behind you, swallowed by distance and your own pounding heartbeat. You did not look back, because back meant chains. Back meant silence that was not yours. For the first time in years, your body belonged to you. Each gasp for breath was your own. Each pain in your legs was earned, not imposed. You did not know how far you would go. You did not believe you would make it, but it did not matter, because in that moment, you were free, and freedom, however brief, is worth the world. By the second day, the pain began. Your sandals tore. The skin on your heels split. You drank water from stagnant puddles, ate berries that made your stomach churn. You slept beneath trees and woke to the sounds of animals or voices, never knowing if they were real. Your tongue cracked from thirst. Your thoughts grew thin. But still, you moved. In a roadside tavern, you saw it. A poster. Fresh parchment, nailed, crookedly. Your height, your age. A crude sketch that resembled you only in fear. Reward, 10 denarii for return. Slave escaped from Villa Silana. Branded. You had not yet been branded. That would come later. You pulled the poster down and ran. Again. You met others in the woods. 3 of them, men with hollow eyes and voices that barely rose above a whisper. One spoke of the coast, one of the mountains. One said nothing at all. You joined them because you were the same. Hunted, unclaimed by the world, yet never truly free. You moved by night, avoiding roads, drinking rain, sharing silence. There was no trust, but there was understanding. You did not ask names. Names were dangerous. Names meant remembering, and there would be no one left to remember. Then came the dogs, and the men, and the shouting. You scattered, feet pounding against pine needles, the air full of bark and panic. You ducked low. You held your breath. You thought for one mad moment you had escaped again. But you were wrong. The hand grabbed your arm like an iron snake. The ground met your face with a violence you could not feel until much later. You awoke, bound. A man with a scarred lip nodded as you stirred. Another one down, he muttered. He was not a soldier, just a professional. He would be paid well for your return. They paraded you back to the estate like a beaten animal. Children pointed. A merchant spat. Someone laughed. You did not cry. Because tears would only Give them what they wanted. The master did not speak, he simply gestured. You were taken to the atrium, tied to a column. The overseer stepped forward. The whip sang. Once, twice, 20 times. Then more. You did not scream. You floated somewhere beyond pain, but then came the iron. They branded you at sunrise, a long iron rod pulled from fire. Pressed to your forehead. Fug E4, fugitivus. Runaway. The mark burned through skin, through muscle, through memory. It did not just disfigure you, it defined you, forever. You were not given rest. The next morning, you were sent to the fields. Back bent, hands shaking, vision still blurred from pain. No sympathy, no pause. Rome had no use for broken things unless they still worked, and you still worked. The other slaves did not speak to you, not because they hated you, because they feared what you reminded them of. You were not a warning. You were a mirror, and no one wanted to see themselves branded. You worked harder now, not from obedience, from emptiness. The days stretched long. The sun carved new scars into your shoulders. Your marks scabbed, then healed, then faded into a permanent stamp. Children stared, visitors whispered. You kept your head down, because there was nowhere left to look. But sometimes, in the stillness of night, when the stars were clear and the wind warm, you let yourself remember. That moment in the grove, the feel of open air in your lungs, the possibility of the sea. And even though you were chained again, you remembered what it was like to move freely, to dream, to choose. They could brand your body, but they could not unwrite that memory, not fully. And in a world like this, even memory is a kind of rebellion. It is just past twilight when the torches are lit. The scent of resin and sweat thickens in the air. The wooden boards of the stage creak softly beneath sandaled feet. Somewhere behind the curtain, you tighten the knot of your tunic, smooth the edge of your mask, and take one final breath. You are ready, not to speak as yourself, but to vanish into someone else. You are a slave of the theatre, a histrio trained to amuse, dazzle, provoke, and obey. Your life is one of practiced laughter and crafted tears. And though hundreds watch you nightly, not one truly sees you. Not the boy you were, not the man you might have been, only the echo of a performance. Your master is a wealthy producer. He owns a troupe of 12, all slaves, each trained in the art of pantomime, verse, acrobatics, and comedy. To him, you are an investment, an asset, a voice, a body that bends. He praises your skill, but he never learns your name. Your day begins. Before the sun crests the rooftops of Rome, you stretch, vocalize, polish the sandals, clean the stage cloth, repaint the chipped wood of the masks. They are grotesque things, some smiling with mouths stretched too wide, others frowning with exaggerated pain. Each mask is a role, and each role is a chain. Today, you will play the bumbling slave. A fool who speaks in nonsense misunderstands every order and trips over every bench. You've played him so many times, he now follows you off stage. People in the street mimic your voice. You laugh with them. You never show that it hurts. At the forum, where you perform today, a crowd gathers. Long before the show begins, children jostle for a view. Merchants lean against crates. Senators and equestrians fan themselves beneath awnings. You stand in the wings, sweating under your costume, listening to the crowd's idle chatter. They say he falls so well, you'd swear he's dying. He played the drunk nobleman La Saturnalia. Hilarious. You are proud. You are disgusted. You are both. Then the curtain rises. The crowd hushes. You step forward, slipping, staggering, shouting gibberish, and laughter bursts like a wave. You fall exactly as you must. You cry at the right moment. You leap, bow, wink, and wave. Every gesture perfect. Every emotion choreographed. The crowd loves you, and none of it is real. Afterward, a young woman throws you a rose. You smile, catch it, bow again, but you are not allowed to keep it. The steward takes it, along with the coins tossed at your feet. Your joy, like everything else, belongs to your master. That night, you clean your mask with oil and cloth, gently rubbing away the day's paint. You stare into its empty eyes and wonder, just for a moment, if yours look any different. Another performer, Felix, plays tragic roles. He sings odes of betrayal and loss with such pain that even Roman matrons weep. Offstage, he smokes dry herbs and mutters Greek verses under his breath. Once you asked if his tears were real. He replied, "No, but the silence after is." There are moments of strange tenderness, when a line lands just right and the audience stills, when a child laughs so hard they fall into their mother's lap, when for a breath you forget that you are not free, that you are acting not by passion, but by order, and still, the joy is there. Fleeting, but yours. But such moments are rare. More often, there are missed cues, drunken hecklers, impatient nobles who demand a joke during your solemn monologue. Once, a senator slapped your rear with his cane after a show, saying, "You should play animals, you're halfway there." You smiled, you bowed, you wept alone behind the curtains. Some nights, when the city sleeps and even the stewards snore, you sneak to the empty stage. You stand beneath the open sky. No mask, no voice, no lines, and you whisper your true name, softly, so it doesn't disappear. You dream of a life beyond the stage, a quiet garden, a conversation without performance, a walk where no one watches, but Rome is made of eyes. And even your dreams are sold for entertainment. One of your troupe disappears. They say he tried to flee. The master announces his replacement before the next rehearsal. No one asks what happened, because silence is safer than sympathy. And yet, you remain. Because this role, the fool, the mimic, the phantom of others, is the only one Rome allows you to play. And if you stop, you vanish. Not from the stage, but from memory. The curtain rises again. The torches flare. Your mask smiles. And so do you. Because that, too, is part of the performance. When you enter a room, no one looks up. Not from malice, not even from indifference, but because you have become part of the background, like the curtains or the tiles beneath their feet. You have mastered the art of disappearance while still being present. You are a eunuch in a Roman household, and every moment of your life is curated for comfort, just not your own. The mistress's perfume fills the chamber, a soft scent mixed of myrrh and crushed violets. You selected it yourself from the cedarwood box beside her mirror. You know her moods by scent. You know which one soothes her migraines, which one makes her feel desired, which she wears when her husband returns from campaigns. You are her shadow, and shadows do not speak unless spoken to. You remember nothing of the moment your body changed, only that you were once whole, and then, like clay shaped too early, you were something else, too soft, too calm, too still. That stillness became your armor, your currency, your role. You are expected to be gentle, obedient. You are allowed into the women's quarters, not because you are trusted, but because you are considered safe. They say you are not tempted, that you do not stir. But what they never ask is what it feels like to be carved of desire, not naturally, but by force. When guests arrive, you prepare the wine with cool water. You arrange the cushions. You light the lamps, each at the proper brightness. For flattery, your hand never shakes. Your face never betrays emotion. You stand in the corner. You listen to laughter, to secrets whispered beneath veils, and you never respond. Not because you lack thought, but because response was never part of the script you were given. Sometimes the Mistress speaks to you kindly, not as a person, but as a mirror. She speaks of dreams, of love, of fears, of her loneliness. You listen, you nod, you say only what soothes. You are her safe place and her favorite silence. In the household, you are respected, feared by some for the way you hear everything, envied by others for the proximity you hold. But never, never are you envied for your life. Not even by the youngest slave girl who polishes the brass and sings to herself in the dark. She looks at you with confusion. She knows you are different, and children are often the first to notice what adults pretend not to see. Another eunuch serves beside you, old, wrinkled, sharp-eyed. His name is Flaccus, though no one calls him anything but Domesticus. He manages the linen, the books, the locks on the storeroom. He never speaks unless necessary. But once, in the quiet of the courtyard, he said, "We are furniture with memories." And then, just as softly, he added, "But I remember everything. At times, you do as well. You remember the sound of a river, a lullaby in a tongue no one here speaks. The way your mother's fingers braided your hair, the scent of olives in sun, and the ache of not knowing whether those memories are real or fragments of longing pretending to be past. The children of the house age, you help raise them. At first, they trust you. They tug at your robe, ask you questions, let you carry them when they weep. But then, as they grow, they begin to look away. Something in them begins to understand the silence you embody, and it frightens them, because you are what they might become, should fate twist the wrong way. The master rewards you, a new robe of dyed linen, a bronze ring, even a small dagger, for show of course, not use. "You're more reliable than 10 others," he once said, clapping your shoulder. You smiled, because that is what you are trained to do at night. When the lamps are extinguished and the atrium lies in stillness, you walk alone. You pass the laurel tree where the household gods are set. You whisper prayers, not in Latin, but in the old words, the ones no one else here remembers. You do not ask for restoration, not anymore. You ask only to remain unbroken. Despite all that was taken, you have a name. It is short, convenient, given to you by your first master. But in the quiet, you repeat the old one, the one your mother once said like a spell, pressing it into your ear before sleep. It is the only thing you still own. They say you are without desire, that your heart is soft because your body is still, but your heart feels more than they know. It weeps when no one watches. It loves in quiet shapes. It remembers. It longs. To the world, you are clean, useful, safe. But in the depths of you, there is a silence shaped like a scream, and no one, not even you, knows if it will ever be heard. The ground above is silent. Up there, Rome sings. She sings with the clatter of chariots on stone roads, with laughter in bathhouses, with the clinking of wine cups between senators. But none of that reaches you. Not here. Here, beneath the grandeur, beneath the weight of empire and ambition, you live in shadow. You are a miner, a slave of the deep, a breath among stone. Your day begins not with the sun, but with the sound of chains, not yours, but those of others. Rusted links dragged across, shale, picks lifted, backs bent. You rise with the taste of metal in your mouth, with the stench of old sweat on your skin, with the silence of resignation in your bones. The tunnel does not greet you, it swallows. You do not know what day it is. You do not ask. Time bends down here. The torches flicker, but you no longer count them. Only your body tells the hour. When your stomach aches, when your fingers cramp, when your cough shakes the stone around you. You were not born here. You once had a mother. You once had sky. You remember the river near, your village, where the reeds were tall and the frogs sang at dusk. But Rome needed gold. Rome needed lead. Rome needed bodies. And yours was taken. They brought you in a cart. You remember the road, the trees, then the descent. The smell changed first. Dampness, earth, something sour. Then the light changed. Dim, smoky, a flickering world of walls that leaned too close. Then the air, heavy, like breathing through wet cloth. And then the silence, so deep it filled your ears with its pressure. That was your welcome. Your task is simple. Dig, lift, carry, survive, repeat. You swing your pick in rhythm with others, a broken orchestra, no music, only the beat of desperation. You carve through stone with hands that no longer feel. The rock resists you. So does your body. The overseers do not speak often. When they do, it is in commands or punishment. They carry rods, but they need them less with time. Pain teaches quickly. The mine itself is the greater overseer. It watches you through stone and silence. You obey not because you fear the man, but because the mine remembers who resists. Some men whisper at night, old songs, fragments of prayers. Others weep softly into their arms, faces hidden in straw. You do not judge them. You have wept too. You just do it differently now. Dry-eyed, in dreams you do not remember. There are no mirrors in the mine. You have not seen your own face in seasons, but you know it has changed. Your beard is patchy, your skin grey, your shoulders curled from crawling. Sometimes you touch your cheek, just to remind yourself you are still flesh. Still there, still someone. Once, a tunnel collapsed. A single cry, and then silence. You were 20 feet away. You froze. Everyone did. Then the overseer shouted, and the work resumed. No one said his name, not because they did not care, but because the mine eats memory too. You found a coin once, buried in a crack of slate, a denarius worn smooth. You hid it in. Your ragged tunic kept it close, not for escape. What fool would bribe the earth, but for proof? Proof that Rome exists, that something above you shines. The worst days are not the hardest. They are the quiet ones, when your muscles ache less, when your thoughts drift more, when the absence of pain becomes frightening, because it means you are becoming stone too, not just in limb, but in soul. Your name is fading. You repeat it every few days, under your breath, just to keep it from vanishing. You mouth it like a spell. Sometimes you forget a syllable. Sometimes the whole thing. Sometimes you replace it with nothing. Once, when you were a boy, someone told you the gods lived in the sky. Now, you think they live in the cracks, in the quiet moments when the pick stops and you feel the earth listening. Not cruel gods, not kind, just present, watching, waiting. You do not dream of freedom. That is too dangerous. You dream of air, of rain, of your fingers touching something soft, of silence that is not born of stone. That is enough. Rome is vast, but Rome is hungry. She devours forests, seas, mountains, and men. You are part of that hunger now, buried so that others may live in marble. They do not see you, not truly. Not when they sit back, robes loose, bellies waiting. Not when they inhale the steam rising from platters gilded in bronze. They taste pleasure, not labor. They see art, not the artist. They call it abundance. You call it fire. You are a cocus, a kitchen slave of Rome. You do not wear a tunic of linen or silk. Yours is always stained, with oil, with soot, with blood. But beneath the grime, you move like a sculptor, every motion carved by habit, every dish shaped by memory, not indulgence. You have not tasted meat in a year, but you know when it's too tender, too tough, too bland. Your day begins in darkness, long before the cock crows. While the master's family still dreams, you stoke the hearth. The kitchen must be hot before the sky turns pink. Fire is your first master. It devours the cold. It tests your reflexes. It burns your hands when your mind wanders. You do not let it. Not anymore. You share your space with others. Each slave with their station. Mela boils wine. Jairus skins fish. Little Aulo grinds pepper until his arms ache. None of you speak unless necessary. Words spoil faster than milk. In the kitchen, silence is safety. Focus is survival. The mistress desires a feast today. Something exotic. A dish with oysters and cherries. You've never seen such a pairing, but you nod. You bow. You obey. You begin to slice the fruit, careful not to bruise its skin. Each cut must be flawless, because one wrong dish, one displeased guest, and the whip may follow. The master once said, "Feasts are how Rome remembers who it is." You remember this, always. As you prepare peacock tongue and lark eggs, as you flavor duck with rose petals and honey, as you compose not a meal, but a spectacle, you remember too that Rome forgets the hands that built her memory. She forgets you. You work beside flame and knife. You sing to garlic. You whisper to bay leaves. You pray to the gods of heat and haste. They do not answer, but they do not punish either. Unlike your overseer, your back aches. But you do not stop. You cut bread with fingers stiff from burns. You arrange platters with hands trembling from fatigue. But you do not pause, because the guests are arriving, because the mistress expects applause, because you, though invisible, must ensure Rome's illusion of eternal splendor. Sometimes they let you peek from behind the curtain to see their reactions, to watch the surprise, the pleasure, the greedy reach for more. Once, a guest asked who cooked the flaming dormice. The master said, "One of the houseboys." That was you. You smiled in the dark, but said nothing, because even pride is not yours to claim. The scent of roast pork fills the villa. Its skin crackles. Its juice hisses. But you cannot taste it. You are not allowed. Not even a sliver. Only after the feast ends. When the laughter dies. When the goblets are dry. When the guests stumble out. Do you scrape your own portion from the bones? A crust. A smear of sauce. Sometimes, nothing. Still, you eat slowly, as if savoring something sacred. You remember, faintly, a meal your mother once made. Beans and leeks, boiled until soft. She hummed as she stirred. You did not appreciate it then. Now, in Rome's finest kitchen, feeding Rome's finest mouths, you would give your left hand to taste it again. At night, you sleep on straw. Your fingers still curl in your dreams, mimicking the rhythm of kneading dough. Your lips move, reciting spices. Even in sleep, your mind cooks, your hands serve, your body obeys. The youngest cook, Felix, asks if one day he might be free. You do not lie. You say, maybe. But in your heart, you know freedom is a different kind of dish. One you prepare for others, but never eat yourself. Rome remembers its generals, its poets, its emperors, but never its coquille, never the slaves who turned fire into celebration, who conjured memory with nothing but salt, time, and patience. You are not remembered, but you remain in every bite, every banquet, every satisfied sigh that rises over a marble table. That is your mark, unseen, unspoken, eternal. The silence here is not peaceful. It is watchful, like a breath held too long. You sit alone, quill in hand, hunched over parchment, stained with time and sweat. Your fingers are stained too, not by toil in the fields, nor ash from the kitchens, but by ink, by words not your own, by thoughts you are forced to copy. Again and again, you are a librarius, a literate slave, chosen not for strength of arm, but strength of memory, for the clarity of your voice, for the way you could recite whole passages from law texts at 10. You thought it a gift, Rome made it a collar. Your cell is lined with scrolls, some brittle with age, some new and sharp with secrets. The scrolls do not speak, but you hear them, whispering things no master would say aloud. The truth of Rome lies in these curled skins and quiet symbols, and you are their keeper, though never their owner. Each morning, your master greets you not with a nod, but with a list. Letters to transcribe, contracts to duplicate, laws to revise. Your reed pen dips and lifts, like a bird that forgot how to fly. Each mark carries weight, a debt recorded, a verdict sealed, a war authorized. You do not question. To hesitate is to invite suspicion. To question is to invite punishment. You write faster than most. They like that. But not too fast. Too fast invites curiosity, and curiosity in a slave is dangerous. So you pace yourself. You become a shadow. Efficient, silent, indispensable, but never seen. You know the names of senators' mistresses, the value of villas across provinces, the schedules of cargo ships, the birth dates of generals, the soft threats exchanged between rivals dressed in silk. You know which son is legitimate and which isn't. You know what cannot be spoken aloud because you've written it with your hand and buried it in silence. Sometimes you wish you didn't know. Sometimes you wish they'd made you clean floors, not archives, but the gods do not bargain. Your teacher was another slave, older, slower. His eyes trembled when he read, but his mind was steel. He showed you how to trim a damaged scroll, how to erase ink without leaving trace, how to mimic a senator's hand in case of emergency. When he died, you copied his name in tiny letters into the margin of a scroll about grain taxes. It is still there, hidden, but alive. Your master once called you his clever little scribe. You smiled. He meant it as a compliment, but you heard the chain in it. Clever, but still his. At night, when the house is still and no one is watching, you write for yourself, not on parchment. That is too valuable. You carve letters into wax, soft letters. The names of people you loved, verses from a song in your old tongue, fragments of thoughts no one else will read. You smooth them away before dawn, but the act remains, a small defiance, a whisper against a sea of orders. One day, a visitor asked to see your master's librarius. You were brought forth like a vase. He examined you with mild interest. Asked if you spoke Greek. You nodded. Do you think in Latin or Greek? He asked. You replied, in silence. He laughed. You did not. You've seen slaves whipped for forgetting to capitalize a god's name. You've seen scrolls burned when a single numeral was written out of place. You've seen men sent to mines for reading what was meant to be sealed. Your ink may be delicate, but your station is not. It is edged, sharp. You walk on the rim of a blade each day, but still, you endure, because to read is to remember, and to write is to live, if only in the margins. If only in the echoes. You have dreams, not of escape, but of freedom within your mind, of writing your story one day, without permission, of teaching letters to a child born free, of building a library where no one asks for lineage, only love of learning. These dreams are soft. They keep you warm when Rome grows cold. No one thanks you. No one knows how much of the empire passed beneath your fingers, but you do. And when the last ink dries and the last scroll is tied, you sit back and let silence return. Not the silence of fear, but of understanding. That you too are history, even if they never write your name. They gave you a sword, not to free yourself, but to make you bleed on command, to turn your pain into sport, to make your rage their applause. You were not born a warrior, but Rome does not wait for permission. You were bought, trained, named like a beast, and then thrown into an arena built on skulls. They call you gladiator, but they still call you slave. Your name is forgotten. They gave you another, something fierce, something marketable. You do not answer to it, but when the crowd roars it, You feel your chest rise, not with pride, but with survival. The training ground is a cage with open sky. The ludus smells of oil, blood, and dust. You spar with men who were once shepherds, blacksmiths, bakers. Now they wield tridents, nets, axes. Their bodies honed not by choice, but by repetition and fear. You learn to fall gracefully, to scream believably, to kill only when permitted, and to smile when you do. Your trainer, a former champion, lost his eye for refusing to finish a kill. He teaches you that hesitation is death, that mercy is weakness, that the crowd will love you more if you look like you enjoy it. You learn quickly, faster than most, not out of ambition, but out of terror. Before your first match, they oil your skin, paint your cheeks, bind your arms in colored cords. You feel less like a man, more like a statue carved for war. They hand you a weapon, tell you the other man is a criminal, a traitor, a nobody, just like you. You step into the arena and the sun is too bright, the sand too hot, the roar of the crowd too loud. You try to remember how to breathe. Then he charges. You do not think. You swing. The crowd cheers. You do not hear it. Only the thud, the blood, the silence that follows. You win, but you are not free. You eat that night in silence. The other slaves pat your back. Some admire you. Some fear you. All understand. Today you lived. Tomorrow is another fight. Some are sold to rich men as bodyguards. Others are made into enforcers. A few become champions, poster boys for Roman valor. But none ever forget. You are only valuable if you entertain. If you make blood into theater, pain into rhythm, death into art. You are given better food now, meat, wine, baths. The crowd loves you. The magistrate smiles when he sees you, but you are still owned. Your victories belong to them. Even your scars are counted in their books. One night, you kill a friend. He was ordered to face you. Neither of you begged. That was the rule. When it was over, you knelt beside him and whispered his name. The crowd thought it part of the show. They applauded louder. You dream of rebellion, of breaking chains, of turning swords on your masters, but you also dream of walking away, of a quiet life, of planting something that does not bleed. You know the story of Spartacus. Everyone does. They say he almost brought Rome to her knees. But the key word is almost. They crucified his men mile after mile. Some say their bones still line the roads. You do not wish to join them. Not yet. They dress you in gold now, call you hero, but you are still caged between fights, still watched, still owned. A lion may be, crowned, but he is still in chains. You wonder if they will remember you, years from now. Will they speak of your speed, your precision? Will they carve your name into marble, or will they forget the moment you fall? One drop of blood too late, one cheer too short. You are strong, but strength is not safety. You are famous, but fame is not freedom. You are feared, but fear cannot hold you when your knees give out and the sword slips from your hand. You live by the blade, and one day you will die by it. Not because you are weak, but because Rome needs fresh faces, new blood, new pain to devour. No lash marks stain your back, no calluses harden your hands, no earth clings beneath your nails. And yet, you are no less enslaved, because in this part of the Roman house, captivity comes clothed in silk and silence. You were not bought for your strength, nor your skill in field or kitchen. You were purchased for your beauty, your voice. The way your eyelashes lingered just a second too, long beneath a slave auction's sun. Your price was higher than most, because your value lay not in labor, but in longing. The Dominus admired your eyes, said they reminded him of the sea before a storm. The domina watched you more coldly, calculated, possessive. She nodded once, and your fate was sealed. They did not train you with whips, but with mirrors. You were taught how to walk in measured steps, how to pour wine without a splash, how to smile at guests but never stare too long. They fitted you for silks dyed deep violet and pale gold. They curled your hair with care. They bathed you in oils scented with frankincense. You became a living ornament, a whisper of pleasure for those who could afford you. You serve in the cubiculum now, not with trays, but with touch, not with commands, but compliance. You know the rules. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not wince unless asked to pretend. Do not remember, ever. The domina comes to you first. She prefers your quiet presence. Says your fingertips are cool, like marble, and calm her mind. Sometimes, she weeps into your lap. Other nights, she asks you to trace poetry on her back in invisible ink. You oblige, not because you care, but because you must. The dominus arrives after banquets, drunk, restless. He does not see you as a person, only as a vessel. He never calls you by name, only by the roles he imagines for you. Priestess, nymph, ghost. You learn to disappear into each one, to protect what little of yourself remains. Your chamber is small, but filled with soft things, curtains like clouds, feathers in cushions, candles with glass, globes. It smells of rosewater and honey. But beneath the sweetness, there's rot, a sense that something sacred has been smothered, and you are buried beneath it. You eat grapes from silver bowls. Your skin is kept smooth, your lips tinted, but you have no voice in your own story, no freedom to say no or yes. Only as you wish, domina. Only, of course, dominus. Always with a bow of the head, a veil over the soul. The other slaves do not envy you. Not really. They fear you. Because those closest to the master's bed often fall hardest. Not by whips, but by whims. A glance away at the wrong time. A wrinkle too, soon. A laugh that lingers with the wrong guest. That's all it takes. Sabinus used to serve like you, tall, graceful, careful. Then one night, the dominus broke his nose in a drunken rage. He now tends to the dogs, still beautiful, but silent in a different way. You have seen many come and go. Some cry at night. Some pretend to love their roles. Some do love, in strange, starved ways. You do none of that. You endure. Because endurance is the only rebellion left to you. You keep small treasures under your mattress. A tiny seashell, a linen thread from your mother's robe, a piece of papyrus with a single word. Remember, you unfold it sometimes, when no one watches, when the mask is too heavy. The dominus once asked what you dream about. You smiled and said, nothing. He laughed, called you perfect, but you do dream, not of escape, not anymore. You dream of being forgotten, of walking in a market without eyes following, of being plain, of growing old, of being left alone. Sometimes a visiting senator will flirt too boldly. You smile, always, but behind the smile, fear blooms. Because if the dominus sees, if the domina suspects, it is you who will suffer, not the senator, not the guest, only you. You are owned in ways beyond the body. Even your breath has been choreographed. Even your laughter is rehearsed. You are not a courtesan. You are not a lover. You are a reflection, a desire molded into form. And you fear one day the mirror will crack, and no one will remember what you looked like. But until then, you move through rooms like a ghost of silk and scent. They see beauty, they see pleasure, but they never see pain. That remains yours, private and strangely sacred. The palace of the emperor does not echo. It absorbs sound. It traps breath. It turns even the boldest voice into a whisper. You have learned this. You live this. Because you are not a senator, nor a soldier, nor a noble. You are a slave. And your cage is the heart of the empire. They call it honor, to serve Caesar himself. But you know better. You know that the closer one stands to the throne, the colder the shadow, and the sharper the edge of silence. You were selected young, from among hundreds. Your face was clean, your posture straight, but most of all, your eyes held nothing. No question, no hope. That pleased them. They sent you to a domus deep within the Palatine Hill. There you were trained. How to walk without sound. How to bow without seeming weak. How to remain present yet invisible. You were taught to speak softly, and more importantly, to remember everything. Soon, you entered the emperor's household, the familiar Caesaris, a name heavy with promise, but also with danger. You became part of the breath behind the marble, an instrument of routine and of surveillance. Your mornings began before the birds stirred. You lit the emperor's lamp, poured his washwater, folded his robes just so, pleating each fold like pages in a sacred book. No detail could be wrong, because when gods walk among mortals, even the dust beneath their sandals must be arranged. You watched him eat. You tested his food. You stood behind him while he spoke to envoys from Persia, Nubia, Britannia. You learned more than he thought you could, and less than you wished you knew. One night, he asked if you feared him. You said no. He smiled and said, "Then you're either very brave or very stupid." You bowed deeper and said nothing. That was the correct answer. You witnessed the fall of 3 consuls in 1 year. You carried sealed letters that sent generals into disgrace. You watched a child emperor crowned while still learning to write his name. You saw a mother's tears wiped away moments before she signed the death warrant of her cousin. You never spoke of it, not even in dreams. Because dreams, here, are not safe. You are dressed well, not richly, but better than most slaves. You eat fresh bread, drink clean water, sleep under linen, but none of that matters, because each comfort is a leash, soft but firm. You knew a scribe named Gaius. He made a joke once, not cruel, not loud, just a soft murmur about the emperor's wine habit. By sundown, he was gone. The next day, his name was scratched from the duty board. No one mentioned him again. You didn't either. Trust does not live in the palace, only usefulness. You are useful because you are quiet, because you move like a shadow, because you never ask, only anticipate. There are rumors of imperial slaves who rose, freedmen who became advisors, commanders, even lovers. But those stories are dangerous. They invite longing, and longing breeds carelessness. So you do not dwell on them. Not for long. You are not allowed to write your own name, but you have carved it once. Tiny, behind a loose stone in the archives. It is still there. You check every Saturnalia, just to be sure you still exist. One day, a foreign dignitary asked you for directions. You pointed without words. He smiled, called you invisible gold. You wondered if he meant it kindly. You still wonder. You keep a journal in your head, not on papyrus. Too risky. It holds things no scroll would bear. The emperor's sighs, the look in the Praetorian's eyes before he gave bad news, the way the empress flinched when her son entered the room. Sometimes you think you are not a man, but a vessel, a mask, a tool made of flesh. But then the wind shifts, and you smell the gardens, or hear the lute from the women's quarters, or feel your own breath against your collarbone. And remember, you are still here, still breathing. You have seen 3 emperors die, one in sleep, one in agony, one in silence. You lit candles for them all. The last one held your hand before he passed. He said, "Tell them I was better than my father." You nodded, but told no one. because that too was part of the job. You are not free, but you are more than a servant. You are witness, keeper, a whispering wall, a still river holding the reflection of a world that never sees itself clearly. And so, you stay in this palace of power, in these chambers of mirrors, a slave. Yes, but one who knows, and sometimes that is power enough. Not all chains clang. Some crack quietly. Not all revolutions roar. Some begin with the softest breath, the breath of one who dares to remember they are still human. This is the story of those moments, rare, fleeting, but real, when the chains of Rome trembled and the silence broke. You are a slave, born so. Your mother was a midwife in a noble house near Naples. You watched her bend her back for others, watched her hands grow old before her face. She used to whisper to you, even stone cracks when it's cold enough. You didn't know what she meant then, but you never forgot. Your work was quiet, sweeping, fetching, folding. You were obedient, you were forgotten, and that made you dangerous. Because forgotten things remember. They listen. They wait. It began not in war, but in hunger. The cook's assistant stole bread. He was whipped, but his cry stayed in the air longer than usual. It clung to the rafters. It echoed in your ribs. Something shifted, not loudly, just enough. 2 nights later, the gates were left unlatched. No one spoke of it. But 5 of you left, running barefoot across dew-covered fields. You didn't know where you were going, only that it wasn't back. You found others, runaways, broken but breathing. Together, you camped beneath olive trees, told stories in hushed tones. One woman sang a lullaby from Thrace. Another wept into her knees, asking if this was what freedom felt like. No one had an answer. Then someone mentioned a village to the north, a place where freedmen lived. You journeyed toward it, hiding by day, moving by night. Each hour, your body remembered it was yours. Each step, your name, your real name, grew louder in your mind. At the village edge, an old man greeted you. His arms were scarred, but his eyes were soft. He said, "We do not own land here, only time." You did not understand then, but you stayed. Life was not easy. You worked harder than ever, cutting wood, mending roofs, learning to speak like yourself again. But at night, around fire, there was laughter, real laughter, not the kind that seeks permission. You met a man. He had once been a tutor in Rome. He had seen libraries burn. He taught you how to read your own story, not in scrolls, but in silence. He said, "What they erased, you must write again." So you began to write, with voice, with touch, with memory. Word spread. Other slaves came. Quietly, desperately. A woman who'd fled from a senator's bedchamber. A child born beneath a merchant's cart. A gladiator who dropped his sword and run. They brought songs, scars, and names no one had spoken aloud in years. Rome noticed. Of course, you were not a rebellion, but you were a question, and Rome feared questions. They sent men, riders in crimson. You did not fight them. You simply vanished into forests, into hills, into stories, because what is remembered cannot be conquered. Years passed. The empire grew old. Its roads cracked. Its temples crumbled. But your village remained, and others like it. Hidden, quiet, alive. Your hair turned silver. Your hands wrinkled, but your voice never lost its warmth. Children sat at your feet, not to be taught, but to be reminded that they were born free. One day a traveler arrived. He carried parchment. He said he was writing of the fall of empires. You laughed. Look instead, you said, at the rise of names. He asked for yours. You gave it freely. Then you gave him others. Dozens. Hundreds. Names of those who dared to run, to breathe, to love in hiding. He wrote them down, and for the first time, your story moved beyond whisper. Now, the empire is dust. But your echo remains. In classrooms, in prayer, in lullabies sung beneath stars. The world remembers Spartacus, but it also remembers the nameless because you made room for memory. You cracked the silence. You softened the stone. And in doing so, you became more than a slave. You became a seed. Thus ends our journey, from chains to whispers, from silence to song. You would not last a day as a Roman slave, but perhaps you would have dreamed your way to freedom. And in the end, that dream would have been enough.